We're going to get started. We're here to talk about project 003113, the rehabilitation of Bridge 7094 in Ashford. My name's Corey Burrows. I'm the project engineer with Connecticut DOT for this project. The project email is shown on the screen along with the phone number 860-594-2020, which you can call at any point and leave a voicemail for the project team. Also on the screen is the project webpage where you can go to see more information about the project, including some visual aids that will be included in this presentation. You can also find the YouTube link to this presentation after the webinar is concluded at this link. The Title IV Civil Rights, no person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. On this slide, you'll see a QR code as well as a couple links for a voluntary post-meeting survey and more civil rights information. A recording of this presentation will be posted to CTDOT's YouTube page after this event. This is the Title IV notice to the public that the Connecticut Department of Transportation operates its programs and services without regard to race, color, and national origin in accordance with the Title IV Civil Rights Act. Any person who believes he or she has been aggrieved by any unlawful discriminatory practice under Title IV may file a complaint with the CTDOT. On the slide, you'll find more information about how to file a complaint with the CTDOT. On this slide, you'll find the same information posted in Spanish. Here's a quick how-to view the captions and subtitles in Zoom. So click the Show Captions CC, and then click the speaking language. Select this language which you would like from the list shown. Closed captioning, including non-English translation options, are available on YouTube after the event. How to use the Zoom Q&A session. So select the Q&A tool at the bottom of the webinar window. The Q&A window will open as seen on the right. Please type question in the text box and click enter. If you're an audio-only participant, excuse me, if you are an audio-only participant, dial *9 to raise and lower your hand. So the agenda for tonight's meeting, we're going to start by introducing the project team, which will be followed by a formal presentation of the design process, which will explain the conditions of the existing bridge and describe the project purpose and need. We'll also present the scope of work and the anticipated project benefits and impacts. The presentation will close with an open forum to discuss comments and questions from the attendees. With the CTDOT, we have Division Chief of Bridges, Bart Sweeney, Principal Engineer of the Consultant Bridge Design Team, Derek Lassard, Project Manager for the Consultant Bridge Design Unit, who's joining us tonight, Francisco Fadul, and myself, Project Engineer Corey Burrows. On the project CLE and designer side, we have Program Manager Rich Armstrong from GM2, Program Manager Ajit Gokal, who is joining us tonight and will be presenting the formal technical portion of the presentation, as well as the designers, the project manager Rifat Salah, and project engineer Derek Schmaltz from RHS. I'm going to hand it off now to Kathleen.
Okay, thank you, Corey. So my name is Kathleen Erickson, and I'm a project coordinator with the department's Division of Rights of Way. Our office is responsible for acquiring the property rights that are needed for transportation projects all throughout the state. So as you'll see in this presentation, this project will require the acquisition of property rights. So I'll just be giving you a brief overview of the acquisition process. Before I get further into that, though, I do want to mention that the specific property impacts for this project are still being finalized, and they could change as the design progresses. Also, any required property rights will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, Sections 13A-73 and 13A-98E, as well as the Uniform Act. Can you go to the next slide, please? So the right-of-way acquisition process begins once the design has progressed to a development milestone and all of the impacts from the project have been determined. At that point, each affected property owner will receive from our office a formal letter of intent to acquire, along with a property map which depicts the exact property rights to be acquired. You can see on the slide here a sample of what those property maps look like. Next, our office will determine the fair market value of those property rights, which will be used to establish an offer of just compensation. That offer will be sent out to the property owner in writing, and a right-of-way agent will be available to meet with the property owner to explain the project, to go over the specific impacts to their property, and to explain the state's offer. The property owner will have a reasonable amount of time, which is typically about 30 days, to consider the state's offer and to enter into negotiations. Once an agreement has been reached, the department will prepare all the necessary paperwork to record the deed and the property map on the town land records. However, if an agreement cannot be reached, in order to keep on schedule, the department may acquire the necessary property rights through its power of eminent domain. If that were to happen, the state would file a notice of condemnation in the Superior Court, along with a monetary deposit in the amount of the state's offer. The owner would then have 6 months from that date to file an appeal if they felt the state's offer was inadequate. Now, whether or not the owner chooses to appeal, the money deposited in the court is available to be withdrawn by the owner at any time. It is important to note, though, the state will only acquire property rights that are needed for the project. If there are any questions regarding the right-of-way acquisition process itself, I'm happy to answer them during the Q&A portion of tonight's meeting. But for now, I'm going to turn it back over to Corey to continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Kathleen. So here's a site location showing the bridge location as it relates to James Road and Perry Hill Road. The bridge 7094 carries Route 89 and it allows the conveyance of the Basset Brook. Here's an aerial view of the site, which shows there's a residential area, campground, there's the Rankin Reserve Park, as well as the Ashford Fire Department to the south. I'm going to hand it over now to Ajit, who's going to handle the technical portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Corey. Could you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so this is the existing structure. This is a view looking southeast. This is a view looking from the upstream side of the Basset Brook. What you see in the picture is the existing culvert or an existing bridge, as we refer it that to. It is bridge number 7094. It was built in 1958. The existing structure is an ACCMP pipe, an arch-shaped pipe. ACCMP basically means asphalt coated corrugated metal pipe. It is 8 foot 10 inch wide at the base and 6 foot 1 inch high, and it's 98 feet long. It runs from from the upstream to the downstream side, from the west to the east side. The brook flows from the west to the east, as you can see in the picture. Adjacent to the structure is the local road, James Road, that you see in the photo. Route 89 over the structure carries 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction. And the average daily traffic is about 2,800 vehicles per day. The overall width of the roadway at the bridge is 38 feet. 38 feet roadway width, and the out-to-out width is 43 feet 8 inches. Next slide, please. These are some photos of the inside of the pipe to illustrate what the existing condition is like. As I said earlier, the bridge was built, or the culvert was built in 1958, and over a period of time, it is showing some deterioration and corrosion. It's considered to be in poor condition. What you see on the left upper corner is the inside view of the pipe, which shows some heavy rust along the joints. Then on the upper right corner, there is a portion which has a sort of a splice or a patch inside the culvert, probably done during the original construction of the pipe culvert. On the lower left, you see some portions of the bolt and the joint with missing coating and heavy rust along the interface from the vertical to the horizontal. And the lower right is an overall view of the pipe seen from one direction. As you can see, the bottom of the pipe is severely corroded, and we want to address this problem in this project. Next slide, please. So purpose and need of the project, basically to address the structural deficiencies and to provide a structure that accommodates safe travel for all facility users and to continue conveyance of the roadway above and water below, right? So what you see on the lower left is a close-up view of the inlet, and on the lower right is the close-up view of the outlet elevation. Next slide, please. The goals of the project. So currently the condition rating of the pipe or the culvert is 4. Any improvements or replacement we do, the condition rating will be improved to a 7, which is good to excellent condition. The other goal of the project is also to improve the hydraulic capacity of the pipe. In other words, make it larger so that it can allow the passage of more flow. Also maintain the sufficient load capacity for all vehicles. So the new structure will be such that it can carry the live loads without any structural issues. Replace the structure. The solution here is to replace the existing culvert with a new precast concrete box culvert. Next slide, please. So what you see on the screen is the overall site plan of this proposed project. The yellow basically designates the limits of the project along Route 89 as well as along James Street. And that is going to be new pavement. It'll be raised by about a couple of feet from the existing profile. The dark brown or the orange in plan view is the new culvert structure that will take the place of the existing pipe. The little walls that you see on the inlet and the outlet side are basically the wing walls of the structure. And the blue obviously denotes the Basset Brook. In this picture, Basset Brook flows from top to down or from upstream to downstream, north being towards your right. And the red lines denote the existing right-of-way or the existing space that the DOT owns. And our goal is to build a new structure within the existing right-of-way. Next slide, please. This slide basically shows, this is an engineering drawing of basically the site plan that you just saw in the earlier slide. In a nutshell, what it shows is the gray is the limits of the new project. The gray denotes the new pavement. The light gray denotes the existing pavement. And the green denotes the proposed shoulder. The new shoulders will be widened. The portion of this project will have 7-foot shoulders from the existing 6-foot shoulders. Next slide, please. This is a close-up view of the proposed culvert. What you saw in an earlier slide, just zoomed in. This is going to be the new box culvert. The box culvert is going to be 15-foot wide by 8-foot high. This is the clear opening inside the box culvert. And you can see the 4 wing walls, one at each corner. The brook flows from left to right. The red lines again denote the existing right-of-way or the space that is available to build the structure within the state's right-of-way. And there's traffic shown in each direction on Route 89. So this would be the final footprint of the structure in plan view. Next slide, please. This is a cross-section of the proposed structure or the proposed culvert. Like I said, the proposed box culvert will be 15-foot wide as you can see in the picture, and 8 foot high. The bottom of the culvert will be, there'll be natural stream bed material about 2 feet thick placed on top of the bottom slab of the culvert. And this view is like a typical cross section of the proposed culvert. Above the culvert, what you see is the new metal beam rail that will be placed at the end of the project. That is just shown conceptually in this picture. Next slide, please. This is a longitudinal section of the proposed box culvert. Again, to orient you, the brook flows from left to right in the picture. The proposed culvert will have a 2% slope, pretty much to match with the slope of the existing brook or Basset Brook. And what you see above in green is the fill over the proposed culvert, shown in green. That'll be about 4 feet of fill above the box culvert. And the Route 89 in the final condition after the project is done, within the project limit, will have 2 12-foot lanes and 2 7-foot shoulders. The culvert will be about 86 feet long. Next slide, please. So in order to construct this culvert, we are proposing to build it in 2 construction stages. This is what this next plan shows. This is stage 1, where the traffic will be put in an alternating one-way pattern. So the intent is to put the traffic on the east side of Route 89 and close one half of Route 89. The area shown in cross hatching is the work zone. So in that stage, once the traffic is shifted onto the right side or on the east side in a one-way alternating traffic pattern, the portion of the new culvert that is on the west side will be constructed along with the associated roadway on each side on Route 89. During this stage, James Road will remain open. The driveway of the adjacent house will also remain open. There'll be a temporary traffic signal at the end of the driveway so that any local resident traffic coming out of the driveway can make the left or the right in this one-way alternating traffic pattern. There'll also be temporary traffic signals at each end of the work zone. Pretty standard way of operating one-way alternating traffic in a stage construction scenario. And the portion of the culvert will be completed in stage 1. Next slide, please. Similar to stage 1, what you saw in the earlier slide, this is implementing stage 2, where traffic will be placed in a one-way alternating traffic pattern on the west side of the culvert or on the portion that was just built in stage 1. And then the balance of the culvert will be constructed as shown in the hatched area here. During this stage, James Road will also go under some reconstruction because we are raising the profile of the road in both stages. So in order to construct the raised portion of James Road would have to be closed for a short duration, about 2-week period. And during that time, traffic along James Road is proposed to be detoured along the local detour route, which I'll show you in the next slide. These are basically cross sections along the longitudinal section of the culvert. What you see in the top view is the existing culvert, or what exists today in gray. During stage 1, like I said earlier, traffic will be shifted onto the right side or on the east side in a one-way alternating pattern within an 11-foot lane. And the traffic barrier will separate the traffic from the work zone. The work zone will be on the left side, and during that stage, a portion of the new box culvert will be constructed as shown in the orange or the light brown color. Next slide, please. So similarly, in stage 2, which is basically a cross-section through the stage 2 plan view that we showed you earlier, traffic will be now placed onto the on the west side or on the left side of the culvert or on the portion of the culvert that was built in an earlier stage. And then the balance of the culvert will be constructed as shown in the on the right side, and which is stage 2 construction. At the end of stage 2, the entire culvert will be completed, as you can see in the lower cross section, the green showing the final fill over the culvert. New metal beam rail will be placed along each side of the culvert. Culvert head walls, any other closure walls, all finishing work will be completed, and traffic will be opened in the final configuration with 1 lane in each direction. You'll have two 12-foot lanes within the project limit and 7-foot shoulders. Next slide, please. So like I said, during stage 2, when there is work to be done on James Road, local traffic will be allowed to travel on James Road so that the residents living right adjacent to the project can access their property. But any through traffic will not be permitted. Any through traffic is proposed to go along this local detour route along James Road, Horse Hill Road, North Road, and Route 44, and back on Route 89. This loop approximately takes about 14 minutes to travel under normal traffic conditions. It's about 8 miles long. Like I said before, detour is anticipated to be in operation for about 2 weeks. And Route 89 traffic will not be affected during this portion or when the detour for James Road is in operation. So during that time, traffic on Route 89 will continue to be on one-way alternating traffic pattern as required during stage 2. Next slide, please. Some additional project considerations to build this culvert, like many other projects, is basically utilities, rights of way, and environmental issues. So there are some existing utility poles along the west side of Route 89. Those will be temporarily relocated during construction. The exact relocation plan for these poles has not been detailed. We'll be meeting with the individual utility companies to discuss a possible relocation of the poles. The reason for relocating the pole is so that the contractor gets enough headroom or enough overhead clearance to operate his equipment during each stage. So once the temporary relocation of utilities is done in the initial stage of the project, contractor can work freely without any overhead interference of overhead wires or clearance issues. The rights of way, we anticipate temporary easements for this construction. Those will be limited to temporary work areas on the upstream and the downstream sides. Like it was mentioned by Kathleen, the exact determination of right-of-way impacts has not been yet designed for this project, but that is a process we follow during the design phase of the project. So, but we anticipate temporary easements and nothing in terms of major permanent takes. Environmental, one thing to note is that the limits of the floodplain for this project is outside of the immediate footprint of the project. It's further downstream. So it does not impact any flood insurance maps or any flood insurance study maps that are already on file. Next slide, please. So the preliminary schedule and the cost of the project, the anticipated construction start of this project is April 2028 as per present schedule. End of construction will be November of 2028. We anticipate a full construction season to complete this culvert. The anticipated construction cost is 3.9 million. And the funding provided for this project will be through 80% federal funds, 20% state funds, and there is no cost or no town funds involved in this project. Back to you, Corey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajit, for that. So just a quick reminder of how to use the Zoom Q&A option. Just select the Q&A tool at the bottom of the Zoom webinar window. The Q&A window will open as seen on the right. And then just type the question in the text box and click enter. Again, if you're an audio only participant, you can dial *9 to raise and lower your hand. This slide shows the project email where questions can be sent. There's an open comment period of 2 weeks that closes February 19th. The email is dot.project003-0113@ct.gov. Send your questions to that email and somebody from the design team will provide a response. You can also call the number 860-594-2020 and leave a voicemail. Or you can post a question in the Zoom Q&A and have the design team answer now. Also shown on the screen is the link to the project webpage where you can find more information about the project, including some of the visual aids presented in today's presentation, as well as a link to the recorded Zoom presentation on YouTube. So just a quick reminder, you can ask questions in the Zoom Q&A and the project team will answer live right now. Or you can send an email to dot project003-0113@ct.gov and a member of the design team will respond to you. Or you can call 860-594-2020 and leave a voicemail. Please note that the comment period for questions and comments to this email inbox closes after February 19th. We have one question from Catherine. What will the duration of the project be? Ajit, you want to answer that, please?
Sure. The duration of the project is anticipated to be one construction season. Even though there are 2 stages, this being a culvert, it can be managed in one construction season, assuming there's an April start and ending by the end of November. So approximately 244 days, which is one construction season. That's what is going to be planned.
Anonymous attendee asks, what type of fence will we put up for the existing?
What type of fence?
What type of fence will be put up for the existing?
So is he referring to the like a construction fence or I'm trying to understand the question. So if the question pertains to isolating the construction zone with a fence or something like that, there, if I understand it that way, there'll be temporary traffic barriers separating the existing structure from what is being built in stage 1. And stage 2, the existing structure will be completely gone because in stage one, the new portion of the new structure will be built. So as such, there won't be a fence, but there'll be a barrier separating the traffic and the
Oh,
work zone.
Ajit, we have a clarification. They're referring to the existing cow pasture fence.
I see. So the existing fence, I think it's near the outlet within a certain distance, if I remember right. We will review that further to see how that would be impacted, if at all. We don't have the details of where the fence is located at this point, but we'll be happy to review that and get back to you.
We have a follow-up question. Are we protecting the existing pasture from debris?
The existing pasture that is on the downstream side, correct?
Correct.
Yes. So the existing fence that is on the downstream side will not be impacted directly. All work on the downstream side will be done within the right of way. If there is a need for a temporary work area that impacts that fence or the pasture on the downstream side, we will individually review that with the town and there's a process for that, like Kathleen mentioned, through the right of way process. We will coordinate that and handle it through that process. Any debris that are flying or would fly or would impact the pasture will not be allowed during construction. For example, the contractor is always required to have a water truck throughout the construction. Any dust flying or onto the cow pasture can be protected that way, if that is your concern. So that is standard practice during construction. We absolutely do not allow any debris to fly onto private property. So there are measures that will be implemented within the contract specifications to prevent that.
We have another question. Was the use of the Boy Scout Road explored for the James Road bypass?
Yes, to a limited level, we drove some local detour routes to see if that would work. But we found that one of the roads directly ends into the scout campground there. So it didn't look feasible. Plus, it was also narrow. So the only route that we could find to be feasible was the one we showed on the slide, which was through Horse Hill Road and back onto Route 44.
We have a question from Catherine. She says, what about debris in the water?
So the debris in the water will basically, what will happen at the start of the construction is that there'll be a temporary bypass pipe, which means that the Basset Brook will receive a temporary dam on the upstream side, a sandbag coffer dam, kind of a temporary dam. And then a bypass pipe will be installed from the upstream to the downstream across Route 89 in a temporary trench that will be constructed right in the beginning of the project. And basically the brook will be diverted through the bypass pipe. And the goal being to create dry to semi-dry conditions. And then there is best management practices which will be implemented, such as putting any kind of sedimentation and erosion control systems to prevent any erosion of soil or any pollution of water or any debris falling in the brook. The removal of the existing pipe will also be done via saw cutting the existing pipe and lifting it out of the ground so that any debris that could possibly get into the brook will be minimized or will be prevented. And the bypass pipe will basically divert the brook away from the immediate construction area. So the chances of any debris getting into the water are minimized.
We have another question. Current emergency vehicles will have to route extra time to get to an emergency. Is this a concern?
So that was discussed at our town meeting, and we will be further reviewing that. The access along Route 89 is being maintained through one-way alternating traffic. So traffic will be slowed down because of the temporary signals on each side. We will have to review this further and answer your question better in terms of the timing.
How are the traffic lights timed? Is it by sensor or just alternating specific timing?
So the one-way alternating signals have their phase for each direction. They are usually timed via loop detectors that are installed under the roadway, or they are also side mounted. There are various ways of powering those signals. Since they are temporary, that's how they will be handled in this case. There's a DOT standard specification for that will be followed for temporary signalization.
Thank you, Ajit. We have another question. The size of the culvert is much larger. Was it warranted to be bigger?
Yes, the size of the culvert was warranted to be bigger because the drainage area that is based on the amount of flow coming into the culvert. The existing culvert is only 6 feet wide at the bottom, and that is not completely hydraulically sufficient to carry the 100-year flows that are required to be carried by design. So the new culvert was sized to carry the 100-year flood or the 100-year flow, and it also has to be checked for the 500-year design storm. So it has been sized based on current hydraulic design requirements. So that's where the 15-foot comes from, having to meet the 1.2 times bank full width. So that's where the 15 feet width comes from. The 8-foot height is required because Connecticut DOT requires the clear height, that is the height above the bottom of the brook to the inside top of the culvert, to be a minimum 6 feet. That is required for future inspection purposes so that an inspector can get into the culvert comfortably. And then there is 2 feet of stream bed material below that. So that makes it 6 feet clear plus another 2 feet of stream bed material. So that makes it 8 feet. So that's where the 15 by 8-foot culvert size comes from. And it is based on current design requirements and hydraulic needs.
Thank you, Ajit. We have a question from Janet. She says, what will keep the streambed material from being washed away in storms?
So the stream bed material will be sized in such a way that the velocity of the water does not allow that to float away. The other way to do that is also to have baffles or small little dams, if you will, installed at the bottom of the culvert. Those dams can interlock um, the stream bed material or prevent it from flowing with the flow. So that will be part of design. That will be detailed in design. Plus, the slope of the brook is only 2%, so we do not anticipate a rapid flow going through the culvert that will take the material away. But there'll be check dams within the culvert or baffles that will prevent any loss of streambed material.
Thank you, Ajit.
Welcome.
So just a reminder, if you think of a question after the presentation concludes, you can still submit a question via email to the project email at dotproject003-0113@ct.gov. You can also call the number 860-594-2020 and leave a voicemail. The comment period for this project is open for 2 weeks and closes on February 19th. Are there any more questions for the project team to be answered via the Q&A in Zoom? We'll give it about 2 more minutes if nobody has any more questions. Just a friendly reminder that you can also send in questions via email and somebody from the project team will return your email. The email is dotproject003-0113@ct.gov. You can also call 860-594-2020 and leave a voicemail. You can also visit the project webpage, which is shown on the slide, for more information about the project, as well as to view the recording of tonight's presentation. All right. If there's no more questions for the project team, I think we're going to conclude this webinar. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight to discuss this project, and thank you for your questions as well as your input. Thank you and have a great night, everybody.